Hey everyone. Hopefully the audio is working now. So welcome back to the shop. We were just going over NA versus boosted and getting some basics in. So you guys will have to let me know if audio is working. I apologize for that. The battery on the microphone died, but we have a new microphone and it should be happy. So the good part is I got a practice run. All right. I just checked with a friend of mine in another country, and he said it was working okay. So, okay. So, just to let you guys know what I'm doing, I took the MR6 out tonight and went to a very nice, very fun car meet. It was fun for a little while. Those things always get kind of screwed over by ding dongs, but there was everything there. There was 488. There were some really cool trucks. There were some serious shit boxes, but it was nice. Cool people. Got to see some friends, which was really nice. One thing I noticed was the quick release for the steering wheel for the MR6, because I had parked under the one of the parking lot lamps, and it showed up like I could see all the dirt and gnarliness on here and on the hub. So I'm like, hey, when I get back to the shop, I'm gonna definitely clean this. The other thing I have to look at is the oil temp sensor on this is on, off, on, off. Hey, Berg. Yeah, Berg, my trip to Florida is coming up ASAP. It is a scheduling thing with the realtor and with Scott and Lance, because I have one of Lance's cars here. So I'm trying to filter and funnel everything. But yes, I am coming down there, and I've already looked at all the events and stuff. So with any good fortune, we can meet at Freedom Factory or somewhere near there or whatever. Or come down to Naples and we'll go to dinner with Scott and Lance. I mean, if you want, awesome, we'll do that. So yeah, we'll do that. So yeah, Heather had asked me about the difference between NA and boosted. Heather's brand new into this and getting into the car world, which is great. And was it a couple days ago was Women in Motorsports Day, which is awesome. Yeah, that'd be great, Berg. We're on it. I'll shoot you a text. So yeah, Heather's kicking ass with her 8th gen Civic, and her son's working on a Honda hatchback. So let's do like just some basics and how this stuff works, so you can understand why you would want a supercharger, why you would want a turbo, or why you don't want either one. So when we talk about NA means naturally aspirated. And that means you are mixing air and fuel at 1 atmosphere, like 1 bar is what it is. That's the European term. So normally the air to fuel mixture is a 12-to-1 ratio, 12 parts air, 1 part fuel. And that's kind of average. It can go up and down to like 13, and then it can go down to 8 or whatever. You can mess with it a little bit. But the standard, what you kind of want to be at, is between 12 and 13. That's a good AFR. AFR is what it's called, air fuel ratio. So you have 12 parts air, 1 part fuel, and just for reference, we use a grapefruit as 1 atmosphere. So that's all 12 parts air and 1 part fuel, and they're atomized and they're mixed, and then they go into your combustion chamber, and then the piston comes up, it compresses that, puts it in a tidy little space, spark goes off, boom, piston goes down. That's the super basics of it. Now, if we take a turbocharger or a supercharger, we take that grapefruit size piece and we condense it down into just a grape size piece. Now, that grape size piece has a lot more power because you have compacted the air and fuel together before even going into the combustion chamber. So now you send this very tight little miniature explosion into your combustion chamber. Now your combustion chamber makes it even more potent. Boom, spark goes off, piston goes down, but it goes down with a lot more force because you make a bigger boom. So there's the advantage. Obviously, you're going to get more horsepower. Usually you get more torque, although that's kind of dependent on how you set everything up. But it's almost, with superchargers, it's pretty much immediate horsepower. With turbochargers, depending on turbo lag and your setup, again, it's, you could have a little bit of lag before you get to the horsepower, but it's there. All the components for more power is there. The danger is you also run the risk of blowing stuff up. So most like production engines, like the Camry engine that's in here, is set up with about an 11-to-1 compression ratio. And that's because it's just using that grapefruit size. It is not really ready for, compressed, for boosted operation. So when you start using a regular engine like this and you start boosting it, you can break stuff. You can break stuff very easily. It's not designed to do that stuff. So you run a supercharger and you put that stuff in there, boom, you're sending your crank, right into the pavement. Or I've seen cylinder heads come right out of hoods. There's a big bang. If you watch any kind of drag racing, NHRA or PDRA or any of that stuff, you've all seen funny cars and Top Fuel cars where the engine literally explodes. It's like a bomb. Cylinder heads come off to the side, blowers come up. They have blower straps now and cylinder head straps. So that stuff doesn't go into the crowd. But in the old days, it used to go into the crowd and people could get hurt. But also, Top Fuel is something totally different, but that's the basics. So you can break a lot of stuff. In Top Fuel, and we talked about this the other night, they are running nitromethane, which is a lot different than standard like 93 octane gas or even, commercial diesel or consumer diesel. They're running nitromethane, and that can give you, when you boost that, when you compress that down really tight, that will give you a very big bang. That's the difference between a 1,000 horsepower Supra and a 15,000 horsepower Top Fuel funny car. So there you go. That's the difference. There's a lot of other stuff too, but you get the basics. And in Top Fuel, they have much higher compression ratios because they've found that balance between compression and boost. But what they're doing is they're raising their baseline. Their fuel mixture in that car, after it's compressed and sent down into the cylinders, the piston comes up and it is so close to the top of the head that it sparks just before it makes solid fuel. So it is compressing it that tight and giving it that big of a bang. That's how close it is. When you see problems in drag racing, usually it's because of timing. They either have one cylinder that is way off and ignites, they do pre-ignition and it's bad, or they have a cylinder that is, post-igniting after it's made solid fuel. Solid fuel is far more potent, and that will usually blow stuff up. So they find that balance, but they have their baseline raised way, way higher than production car or even like a pro stock car or any of the stuff you see on the fake reality TV shows. The reality fake TV shows, fake reality TV shows. I don't know, non-reality, whatever it is. The ones where they're drag racing, but all the streets are closed and there's an ambulance there and whatever. A lot different than those cars. And so that's naturally aspirated versus turbocharged, supercharged. Now, the good part is you can use, uh, there's there's systems now that actually use one of each. Volkswagen has a crazy little system. I think it's talked about it the other night. I think it's on a 1.6. They have a supercharger for the first part of acceleration, and then it turns off and the turbocharger engages, which is kind of cool. But you have a very limited span. So, you know, if you watch Bonneville, the runs there, most of the guys who have cars, like consumer cars, they're running gigantic turbochargers because you don't run out of you're always pushing, so you're always boosting. With superchargers, you have limited efficiency. And after a certain time you run out of efficiency, and it's a steep slope once you lose that. With turbochargers, you just keep going and going and going and going. So that's why those guys doing 288, 300 miles an hour are running gigantic turbos. Um, the other downside with turbos is and superchargers is cost. They are very expensive, especially for the good stuff. You can always get cheapo eBay turbo kits, for $200. But guess what? You're going to get $200 worth of use out of it. That's how that works. Um, they're more expensive to maintain, and there's more stuff to break. And that's the usual thing when you're building like a race car like this. The less stuff that breaks, the better. And that's why I try and bulletproof cars, is because I don't want it to break. I I will pay the extra $20 for the nicer part because it's going to save me the hassle down the road. So same thing goes for superchargers and turbochargers. You can get the eBay kit for $200. You could also get a really nice Garrett, or Gale Banks makes great turbo kits. Get a Banks kit for $2,000. It's going to be, worlds of difference. I promise. I promise. And it's the way, how much do you want to put into it? And because how much do you want to get out of it? So how do you increase performance without boost? In an NA car, you can do what's called tuning. And tuning is taking the regular spark timing, crank timing, cam timing, and you can adjust that all timing by getting into the computer that controls the engine control unit that controls all of that stuff in the car. It advances or retards spark. It advances or retards timing. It does all of that stuff, and you can get in there. And that's what tuners do. Is you'll see them plug into like an OBD2 port, and they'll map out. We at this RPM or whatever. They'll lay a map out for how well your car can run. The other good part is, and this is where octane comes in. So on boosted cars, you should run at least 93, if not 96 or 98 or 100. Those cars run far more efficiently and get a lot more power out of a higher octane. Now, if you have an air-cooled car like a Porsche or an old motorcycle or something like that, you should actually run a lower octane so that it burns hotter on the initial spark. That's where it gets a little confusing. So if I have a Porsche from the 60s or like a VW van, 21 window van with a stock 1600 cc, I'm going to want to put 87 in that because it's going to run a lot more efficient and I'm going to have more power by running a lower octane. So you can do that. You can get a little bit of power by changing octane, but if your car's turboed or supercharged, you should run 93 anyway. This car put 93. I put 93 in everything, mainly because I have jugs full of 93. So I don't want to have to be like, oh no, the MR6 gets this, or the Miata only gets that. I don't give a shit. Everything gets a 93. It's worth it. A couple extra bucks at the pump isn't gonna hurt. So you can do that. You can have it tuned. A simple one is to just change octane. And usually most modern cars, unless you're getting into serious tuning like Hondata or Motec or Haltech, any of those guys, they have all their tuning software available. But most modern cars can adapt depending on what octane you're using. So their computers will adjust timing and spark advance and all of that stuff just automatically. They'll be able to recognize that you're losing power or whatever, and they'll change cam timing or spark timing or whatever. It's you're maybe looking at 3 to 5 horsepower if you go from 87 to 93 without any kind of tuning in the car at all, with just literally going from Conoco to Exxon, whatever. Um, it comes down to fuel. The other thing that's really good and a super simple thing, but it of course costs money, is oil changes. And the nicer the oil you have in your car, the better it's going to run. You can run Walmart oil. You absolutely can. It will not produce as much power as if you use Pennzoil, Mobil 1, Brad Penn, or no, what is it called? Hang on. Oh, sorry, Penn Grade. Penn Grade or Brad Penn. This is really good stuff. It's very expensive. It's like $20 a quart, but it's really good stuff. And that's what we're currently running in the limo engine in the 383 stroker. So the nicer the oil you run, and I don't want to say stick with the stock weight, because you can get a little bit more horsepower by changing weight, but usually in the end, it's not worth it. You watch guys who are like, oh yeah, I'm going to, lower viscosity a little bit, and they get another 20 horsepower or whatever. And then 2 weeks later, they're like, oh yeah, I did a rapid disassembly of the supercharger. So yeah, dyno versus synthetic. I think that debate's going to go on and on and on and on until there's no more oil left, and then we're going to be like, oh no, synthetic. I run the Pennzoil now in the Viper, and it's made with natural gas, I guess. And I've had no problems at all. My oil comes out, caramel colored. In this, we are running the Mobil 1, and same thing. And this gets much more frequent oil changes than the Viper does. This gets an oil change after maybe 500 miles. And the oil change in the Viper is about every 2,000 miles. So to have both of those, as hard as we run this, both of those come out caramel colored, that makes me feel good. But you can adjust viscosity to get more horsepower. It's the long way to do that. Tuning is a better option to get more horsepower out of your engine. The other thing you can do, and this is also where it gets tricky, is intake and exhaust. The factory intake on this car would scare you to death. It actually starts on the passenger side. I'm going to show you guys where this intake comes from. You're going to laugh. Actually, I'm not. So it starts over on the passenger side. Here. The intake comes in over here, right beneath the B-pillar window, and it travels through the fender into the trunk of the car, around the trunk of the car, over to this fender, and right behind here is a circular air filter. The air filter then goes back into the engine bay, and it goes into the intake plenum. So it travels the entire distance all the way around the car. Yeah. That's, 80s engineering. If you can open up your intake, that will help your car gain horsepower because you are not restricting any kind of airflow. Modern cars in the last 20 years are very efficient at getting air to the car, to the engine. If you have a performance vehicle, so like a Hellcat or a GT500 or what's that one that Chevy makes? What the hell was that? Oh yeah, the Corvette. They have very good intakes already. Those are already designed in, and they're very good. If you have something older than 20 years, the intakes are probably set up for fuel efficiency and not performance, no matter what car it is. So if you can do a cold air intake, which is what CAI and what a lot of people do, those are good. But definitely research them. There's a lot of good ones out there. There's a lot of $20 eBay ones. Research, ask some, people some questions. Hey, do you like this XYZ one, or do you like the ABC one better? Look up, performance numbers. Hey, I put this on and it gave me 10. I put this on and it gave me 12. Um, there's a lot of different options out there, and find what works in your budget and find what works for whatever horsepower you're going for. The next thing is exhaust, and this is where it gets a little tricky. Your car actually needs back pressure in order to produce power. It'll produce more power if you have a little bit of restriction, not a lot. Um, there's an old trick that Harley guys did when they would, their bike was like, oh man, this sounds great, but I barely have any power. You look in the exhaust, in the tailpipe, and they have welded in washers, and they'll weld in, a washer with a large ID or a washer with a smaller ID, and that gives them the back pressure, but they still have the same sound. So the exhaust is trying to come out, but it has to hit that plate and go back in. You'll see guys that will do from 3-inch tubing down to 2 and then back out to 3. And that will give them that back pressure that they need, depending on where they need to put it in line with the engine. Maybe it's a little closer to the headers, maybe it's further away. Guys will move that 2-inch section to get that back pressure correct where they have more power. InGen cold air and throttle body. Okay, InGen makes good stuff. So as long as it's not, Ling Long or Chen Chin or something like that, I think you're okay with it. There's for the JDM stuff, there's a million different options out there, but definitely spend 5 minutes and do some research and see which one fits in budget, fits in your car, and then gives you the numbers that you want. Without doing any kind of turbo or supercharger or anything like that, you're going to be very limited on how much power you can produce, and you're going to be going to a point where you get negative returns. So you have to be very careful with that. And you can do the same thing with, supercharging, and it's a little harder to do with turbos, but you can do it still. So you have to be careful. You don't want to go too much and then it drops off really quick. And you're like, what the hell happened? We were just running 22 pounds of boost and it went away. So an example would be the SOT4, the ACR that I have. It runs 21 pounds of boost, and that's what, 4 bar, 3 bar, 4 bar? I don't remember what the conversion is. And those guys have figured out with that engine, with that 2.4 and its compression and the 100 octane we're running and everything else, they figured out that 21 is the max, where after that you lose horsepower. So it's not worth it to do 22 pounds, or you can go up to, I think with TD05, you can go up to, I think you can go to 30, 32 pounds, and it's not worth it. They start to, lose horsepower after that. So that's how you do that with, and that's why a lot of people do intake and exhaust, is because it's usually very cheap. It's very easy to do. You can do it in just a couple of hours, and it's plentiful. They're everywhere. There's tons and tons of options. So, like you said, throttle body is another way to do it. Throttle bodies are very simple, and you can go from, like, just an example, like on the Ram, you can go from like an 81 millimeter throttle body to an 83 millimeter throttle body, and it makes a huge difference. You get, 20 horsepower just by going a couple millimeters bigger. Headers. Okay, so that falls under exhaust, and that would be pre any of the other exhausts. The smoother your exhaust, the better, obviously. But again, you still need that back pressure. So there's a lot of guys who want equal length pipes, and equal length pipes are great. There's nothing wrong with that. Your engine will run really nice. But when you do equal length pipes, you want to make sure you have a single, or I guess double, point of back pressure so it's equal on both sides, either on those 2 cylinders or those 4 cylinders or those 3 or whatever. You don't want to have extra back pressure on one bank and no back pressure on the other. Your engine will be, 3 of the cylinders will give you really good power and the other 3 won't, and it'll feel very odd and it'll sound even weirder. If you have, nice back pressure on one side and none on the other, it's going to be like, it's going to be all over the place because your computer's going to try and balance it out too with timing and spark, and your computer's going to freak out. So when you can do equal length headers, and then you do matching back pressure, whatever it is. You have to have some kind of back pressure on there. If it just flows freely, it's think of it this way: it's like a dam breaking. So you have you have Hoover Dam that's, hey, there's Lake Mead. You break that, Lake Mead is going to drain out, and it's just going to drain. You don't have any way to save Lake Mead. So if you just have that dam fall over, that's it. It just falls out. So as part of the 4 cycles of the 4 strokes on an engine, you want to have a little bit of back pressure so that it holds. It's hard to explain. So that it holds things in line, so that every time you get an exhaust, it comes to the exhaust stroke, it actually has to push. You don't want it to fall out. You want it to, walk through the door. You don't want it to like melt through the door. I guess is probably an easy way to do it. Headers is a great way to do it. Headers are usually a lot smoother than OEM exhaust manifolds, and this is so true for Chevy, Ford, Dodge, all that older stuff, using cast iron headers, cast iron exhaust manifolds. Even on the limo, the 305 that it came with had cast iron, and they're angled so weird. They come out and then up and then over and down. They don't come out and down. They went up and then over and down. And they're made very cheaply. That's why they use cast iron instead of nice stainless steel or even just 304 or whatever. A lot of JDM stuff does use actually basic headers. They found that, tubing, just regular steel tubing, they can form and fit and get it done, just as cheaply as doing cast iron. It weighs a lot less. It's, easier to work with, whatever. But yeah, most of the JDM stuff and most of the Euro stuff will have it'll already come with headers. But headers definitely help you flow better. They can't, and again, you pick the size diameter tubing that you want in relation to back pressure and how freely you want the flow of exhaust. If you want it a little bit back pressure, you get a little smaller diameter tube. If you're okay with it wide open, then hey, great, get big ones and do your back pressure somewhere else. But you have to have a little bit of back pressure on there. Also, the sound is absolutely terrible if it's just a straight fallout. It sounds like a UPS truck farting. It's really bad. It's really bad. I'm going to grab some lube for this steering wheel. There we go. Oh, the Lucas penetrating oil. Lucas makes some pretty good stuff. I have a few different things from them. So hopefully that helps answer some of those questions. Again, these are all really good questions because when you're first getting into this, you're like, where the hell does all this power come from, right? Everyone keeps talking about power and power this and power that and power everything else, right? Move those balls around a little bit. Wow, that sounds bad. So this is where you get all that power from. I'm gonna finish off. Yeah, last of the roll. Into recycle it goes. This is just a solid part. So I'm just going to put that there. Make sure he gets all the way around. We'll put our steering wheel back on. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That feels so much better. That feels so much better. Nice. Okay. Steering wheel's back on with a happy MR6. Put this guy away. I'll mess with that temp sensor tomorrow. So again, you have, like I said, you have the advantages of NA, and it's cheaper than turbos. Usually all the stock stuff will work, so you can stick with OEM parts and save yourself a ton of time. And it's a little bit harder to blow up. When you get into turbos and supercharging and any kind of boost, it gets very easy to blow up. There's a lot more that can go wrong. And if you have a race car, you don't want stuff going wrong. You want all of that stuff to go right. So it's more stuff to break. And the less stuff you have to break, the better, because you are going to break stuff. I promise. I promise. The race car will always find the weakest link. It's very, very good at doing that. Very good. I mean, that's why they do this stuff, is to find, weak links in parts and what works best and what's not even close. So, you were just talking about headers. For example, the MR6 actually has headers. It's a V6, so we have 3 and 3, and they look like headers. You take the heat shields off of them, and the ones on this car are Cerakoted. They're ceramic coated, so they maintain heat a lot better. They take care of heat a lot better. But I'm just looking at another set over there that came off the other engine, and they're basically headers. It's a single tube for each cylinder. It's not cast iron. It's just steel, basically a header. So, and that's for, see, that was a 99 Solara that came off of. So 20 years ago. Yeah, that's kind of it. So you have to find that nice part, and then find out what works for you. It depends on what you want to do with the car. If you want a quick drag car, then supercharger is the way to go. Turbocharger is another good way to go. If you can build boosts and put in an anti-lag system, that's another great way. If you are looking for endurance racing, probably NA. It's going to be your best bet. You're going to have less horsepower, but you're going to be there when the checkered flag goes. And you can do supercharged endurance racing. There's cars that do that. But most of the time when you do road racing, the supercharger is the failure point. Or sometimes turbochargers, they've gotten them really, really stout, and they've gotten superchargers really stout too. They have separate cooling, they have water cooling and oil cooling and all this other stuff. So turbos are usually pretty good for racing. But again, you have that lag that you have to deal with to build that boost up. And there's stuff to fight that. So you can use turbos in endurance racing and in drag racing. And Off-road, there's a lot of places you can use it. Um, where else? When you're doing something like autocross, I would say NA is probably a better way to go in autocross because you have these very short bursts of speed. A supercharger might work, a very small one might work for that 80 feet or 100 feet that you're working in, but you're not going to be able to use it for the rest of the course. So you're going to want to spend your money on handling and better tires and a lot of practice, a lot of seat time. That's the best way to get quicker at autocross. So in autocross, you don't really have an advantage with a huge twin turbo car. It's not gonna help you out. It really won't. Neither at the start or the finish or the little straight. You're not gonna have time to build boost. Um, Supercharger, like I said, it might help you for that 80 feet, but the rest of it, it's going to bog you down. It's going to be extra weight. It's going to be stuff that breaks. It's probably not worth it. Um, so find out what you want to do with your car, and that'll help guide you in the direction that you want to go, whether stick with NA or run NA until you get bored and then turbo it or then supercharge it. Um, you can do that as well. Once you get to a point where you're like, this car isn't fun anymore, the option is to turbo it or sell it. And there you go. There's your options. Um, and that was something else. And I was talking with a friend about this a couple weeks ago. God, my hand is still jacked up from Miami. Isn't that amazing? It's almost a year now. Oh, God. Um, it is getting better, though. I have to say that. I'm talking about a friend with a friend about selling cars, and uh, my old SRT 10 truck came up for sale, and someone sent me a link and said, "Hey, man, you should buy your old truck back." Why would I buy my truck back? I sold it. Yeah, but it was such a cool truck and all this. And I'm like, yeah, it was. It was great, but I sold it. Why would I buy it back? Oh, well, you should get another one. I don't want another one. I sold that one. I would have kept it if I wanted to keep it. So a lot of people get very emotionally attached to cars, and like this one is probably one of the most I've ever been emotionally attached to because so many people have helped work on this and make it into this incredible car. So many people have driven this car and given me feedback on how awesome it is. So I would be a little, a little. There might be misty eyes when I sell this car, but I don't have any problems doing that. A lot of people get very emotional and get very into their car, and uh, I don't know. I guess my advice would be make sure you're able to separate you from your car. Um, I love the Viper. I'm very good at driving the Viper, but I would have no problem selling it. I would sell it if I was getting a Voodoo too. So that's just another Viper. But I don't think you should get so emotionally invested in the car that you keep going with it. Again, that's that negative gains. You keep going past the level of enjoyment. And if it's not enjoyable anymore, figure out how to make it enjoyable or sell it. And don't have, seller's remorse or anything like that. So I got a guy coming in a few hours to buy two of the wheels, the 949s. Took me years to find those wheels. And guys come in tomorrow with cash and off they go. I'm going to get another set of 949s for the Miata, and those Miata wheels are going to go with this car. So it works out. But I'm not, I spent a ton of time trying to source those wheels, and it took me years to find three. So I couldn't find the fourth. So up for sale they go. It's pretty simple. Plus, I'm moving to Florida, so I got to sell most of the stuff in the shop is going to be up for sale. There'll be a lot of stuff that goes down with me, but a lot of it's going to go. Um, Engine stands and probably some cabinets and stuff. So we'll see how it goes. I guess that's it. Hopefully that gives you guys kind of the basics on naturally aspirated versus boosted and supercharged and turbocharged. And then you can take a look at your ride and see what you want to do with it. If, boosted is what you want to do, then you need to look at, built bottom end. So new crank, new bearings, journals, etc. And what do you need to do on the top end? You need a, you know, uh, ported and polished intake. Do you need, full, head job? Do you need, oh, sorry, that sounded bad. Do you need, you know, the block surface, the head surface? Do you need 3-angle valves? What's necessary in order to add this boost that you want to do, and to make it work correctly and to make it work reliably. You want it to start every time. So figure out what you want to do with it, and maybe you don't do it on this project. Maybe you do it on a different project. Maybe you do everything you can on this one, and then sell that car, move on to the next car, or shit, keep it. I don't know your budget. Keep it and build another car, whatever you want to do. Um, but yeah, definitely take a little time to do the research on it and see, tell yourself what you want to do with it, and then see what's available. And you know, the bad news is someone's done it before, so you can go look at them. Like, we're not the first clowns to put a Camry engine in a MR2. We are the first ones to do it OBD2. No one's ever done that before. But yeah, just find out what you want to do, and that'll take you down that path. And then again, if you have more questions, put them down in the comments. We'll do, I'll do these late night lesson stuff, and I'll try and help you guys with, getting the right stuff for your vehicle, for what you want to do with it, and at least get you guided in the right direction. No, I'm not going to build your car for you, but I'll at least get you in the right direction. I'll let you use the tools in my shop. How's that? Is that pretty fair? Hopefully that's pretty fair. So I appreciate you guys hanging out tonight. I apologize for the lateness. It is a Friday night, so hopefully everyone's up late. And we'll do more of these late night lessons. We'll do some super basic stuff. We can get more into superchargers and the different types. Same thing with turbos and compound turbos and stacked and all this other stuff. And then the twin charge system, like turbo plus supercharger. We can get more into detail into those systems later on. I just wanted to get you guys the basics, and Heather had brought up the question about NA versus boosted and how that works. So hopefully everyone got a basic understanding of that, and then we can expand more on it later. If there's more stuff you want to hear, definitely right down there. Just, where is it? Right there. Or wait, it's right there. Just add a comment after you subscribe, of course, and then I'll do a late night lesson on some of this stuff too. Cool. You guys are awesome tonight. I really appreciate it. And I don't know why the alarm's going off the Motorplex at almost 1 a.m. The hell. I'll do more of these for you guys, and we'll try and get like a whole series together, and people can get the basics, or we can come back and we can do a lot more advanced stuff. We can get into valve lapping and doing it the old school way. So yeah, thanks a bunch, and I will catch you guys on the next YouTube live. I'll do my best to do a earlier one tomorrow. I don't have as much going on during the day, and so I should be able to get this done and get into the shop and get with you guys. So I appreciate it, and don't forget to show someone that you love them. Don't tell them that you love them. Show them. Give them a kiss on the cheek. Give them a kiss on the nose. Hold their hand. Give it a squeeze. It's really important. It's really important for them. Really important, okay? All right. Thanks, everyone. I will catch you very soon. Have an awesome night. Cool. I don't want to forget this.